Hey guys, it's Danny. Welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about the basics of MySQL and in particular how we can operate within the CRUD framework of really any SQL querying language. You see, CRUD actually is an acronym for create, retrieve, update, and delete, and essentially all interactions, or a vast majority of interactions that developers do with databases, is under the umbrella of one of these four operations. If you guys find this video helpful, be sure to smash that like button. But jumping right into things, the most easy and perhaps the most intuitive operation that we can perform on a database is going to be the retrieve component of the CRUD acronym. And typically, no matter what the querying language is, it's going to be a variation of what you're about to see on your screen right now. In particular, we are using the MySQL querying language, and within MySQL, how we can retrieve items from a database is by using this select keyword. And then afterwards, we can provide the columns that we wish to select from our database. And I'm just going to go ahead and pass this asterisk character. Now, in almost every single querying language, or in almost every single SQL language, this asterisk character is synonymous with the word all. And essentially what I'm saying is I want to select all columns from the database that we are going to be querying. And so I will go ahead and actually provide then the from keyword, specifying to MySQL the database I would like to choose, or rather the table from the database I would like to query. And I'm going to go ahead and query this table called employee salary. Now, for those of you who might be familiar with the Office TV show, if I go ahead and run my select statement here, you'll notice that this is actually all the characters from the Office ordered by this employee ID column right here. And really that's all there is to the select statement. If you want to get fancy, you could actually specify the column names right here. We could go ahead and provide the first name column and the last name column. If we were to go ahead and run this statement right here, you'll notice that we do retrieve the first and last name columns from the employee salary table that we just queried a couple of moments ago. Now, the second operation that we're going to discuss is the update command within a SQL language. And essentially what update does, as the name implies, is we can update really any column of a particular row entry to make a change to the data stored within that cell. And so, for example, if you see on your screen here, I've selected everything from the employee salary table. Let's say I wanted to update Dwight Schrute's salary to be something that is quite markedly less than 55,000. Let's say I wanted to make it something like 123 bucks or something along those lines. Well, in order to do that, if we go ahead and scroll up on our screen right here, we actually use the following syntax. First, we provide the update keyword to signify that, hey, MySQL, we would like to make an update to our table. We provide the table name as the second argument, indicating which table we would like to update. And then we go ahead and we want to set the row entry, or rather we want to set the column value to be the value we provide where, and then this is where we have to provide a parameter. If this is your first time truly being exposed to any SQL language, this where clause essentially allows us to filter any table that we are querying by a row identifier. In particular, in this case, we want to filter by the first name column, and we want to set the salary to be 123,000 where the first name is equal to Dwight. And essentially what that allows us to do is we are directing MySQL to sort of like hone in on in its crosshairs this particular row that I have highlighted in blue on your screen right now. However, there is a quick caveat here. If I go ahead and try to run this command in this fashion, you'll notice that actually nothing happens. And if you guys are using some kind of SQL IDE like MySQL Workbench, you actually notice that you get an error here called error code 1175. And this is because we are operating in what we call safe mode within our IDE. And essentially what safe mode does, it is not going to allow us to update anything unless we pass a primary key to the where clause for an update statement. All you really need to keep in mind is that primary keys allow us to ensure that every single row entry is unique. So for example, in the query that I wrote prior, you'll notice that Dwight is the value we're providing to the first name column. But the problem with this is, let's say our database had 1 million people. Well, the odds of 2 people sharing their first name Dwight just increased dramatically. And so if we just wanted to simply update the second row in the table and not the 1 millionth row of the employee salary table, we would actually not be able to do so, because running this statement under that context would actually update both rows. And so as a result, we are going to go ahead and supply the primary key of the employee salary table, which is the employee ID column. And for Dwight, his row entry is actually identified by 2. If we went ahead and reran the select statement, you'll notice that this is the row we want to actually update to get the salaries to be $123. And if we go ahead and run this statement right here, you'll notice we get a little green check mark at the bottom of our terminal indicating a successful execution of the query. And we can even double check by, again, retrieving everything from our select statement. And indeed, you can see here that Dwight's salary has decreased to $123,045. Now, the D component of the CRUD acronym stands for delete. And essentially, anytime we run a delete command, we want to remove a row entry from a table within a database. Now, there is a huge caveat with this particular component of the acronym, and that is you have to be extremely careful whenever you are running a delete statement, because it is very possible, if you're not running within a safe mode of your IDE, to delete a lot more than you originally intended after running the delete statement. So just a brief word of caution there. But again, getting back to our example, let's say that Dwight really pissed off Michael Scott and Michael ended up firing Dwight. I actually don't know if that ever occurred in the TV show, but let's just say for this example, it did happen. Well, in order to remove Dwight from the employee salary table, it's actually a very similar syntax to the update statement that we just looked at previously. In particular, we begin the clause with the delete command, and then we go ahead and specify from the table we wish to delete. So in this case, from the employee salary table is where we want to delete Dwight Schrute from. And again, we supply this where condition to ensure we don't just delete everything from the table or more than we originally intended. And again, I'm going to be deleting by the primary key and not some other column, because that would actually error out, as we will see in a moment. But if I go ahead and run this script right here, you'll notice that I get, again, another green check mark within my terminal. And just to double check that my query actually ran, if we go ahead and select everything again, you'll notice that Dwight is nowhere to be found within this employee salary table. Now, let's say Michael Scott and Dwight made up and that Dwight is actually going to be rehired by Dunder Mifflin in the Scranton branch. Well, this actually brings us to the first letter of our CRUD acronym, and that is going to be the create keyword. And essentially, create is synonymous within the MySQL context of an insert statement. Now, the syntax for an insert statement, once you understand it, is quite simple, but at the very onset, it's a bit more difficult than the other ones we've just taken a look at previously. So I'm just going to go ahead and paste the insert statement right here, and let's go ahead and walk through this on your screen right now. In order to execute an insert statement, similar to all of our other CRUD operations, we begin with the keyword of the CRUD component we wish to execute. And so in this case, we are going to execute an insert statement or use an insert clause to insert an item into the database. We then specify the table name that we wish to insert, but then we have to provide this keyword into, right? We want to insert into this particular table here. And then we have these two sets of parentheses here, right? We have this set of parentheses right next to the table name, and then another set of parentheses right after this values keyword. Now, essentially what we are doing here is within this first set of parentheses, we are supplying every single column for which we wish to insert data into. In the subsequent set of parentheses, we are actually supplying those values that we wish to insert into each column. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind here. Number one, if your table schema defaults a certain column to a certain value, if it is absent within an insert statement, then in that case, you actually don't need to pass that column name within this first set of parentheses. But just for demonstration purposes, we went ahead and supplied every column name anyway. The second important thing to keep in mind is that for any insert statement, there has to be a perfect one-to-one matching between the elements of the first set of parentheses, the column names, and the elements of the second set of parentheses, which are the data values we wish to insert into the table. And also always remember, because I often overlook this last component here, is that we need to separate these two sets of parentheses by the values keyword, right? And again, this actually makes sense because these are the data values we are inserting into the table. If we go ahead and actually run this command right here, you'll notice that in our terminal, we get a green successful check mark to be printed out. And if we were to go ahead and actually execute this query, you'll notice that Dwight has been reinserted into the employee salary table for the Dunder Mifflin company. Well, there you have it, guys. Everything you're going to need to know about how to operate within the CRUD framework of the MySQL querying language, but it also does apply, I would argue, across other querying languages as well. I'll provide some information down in the description below of some really good SQL resources, of which is one of my modules in my online course. But I really appreciate you guys watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash a like and subscribe for more videos just like this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.